What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. And in this video, I just want to share a couple of key points with you. I was just thinking about something that a wise man once said, and I say a wise man because I don't remember who this man was, but he said, do what is hard when it is easy. And initially when I heard that, I didn't really know what he meant by that, but after pondering about it over many months, and certain scenarios, situations happened in my life, I realized, oh wow, that's what he meant. So let's just say, for example, all right, current situation right now, inflation is very high. We have currently record levels of inflation. I was reading Wall Street Journal the other day, and it was saying that inflation right now is something like 7.5%, 7.9%. And that we haven't seen this level of inflation since since 40 years ago. So that's number one. Number two, the real inflation, many people are saying that it's significantly higher than that, but the media is saying it's significant, it's 7.5%. I agree with the minority of the population, not the mainstream media, to be very honest with you, because if you think about it, you have CPI inflation, which does not account for everything that's going on in our economy. So, in all honesty, that number is so fake. If you ask me, inflation's probably realistically something like 20 or 30%. Now, I want to go back to the quote, do what is hard when it is easy. So keep that quote in your mind, because we're going to touch base on that. In my previous video, this is actually my second video. If you guys haven't already, this is a brand new channel. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. I'd love to grow the channel, grow the community. I want to share my experiences with you guys with preparation. And I'm talking about preparation not just from a food storage standpoint, but I also want to share my preparation perspectives and strategies with you guys from an investing standpoint. We want to all provide for our families and make sure that regardless of what's going on in the economy, whether it's Russia-Ukraine conflict ultimately impacting the globe, including the United States. I know I've seen some, looking at my channel analytics, I've seen some viewers watching me from Canada. So what's up to my Canadian folks out there, Canadian preppers, USA preppers. But please subscribe to the channel, like this video if you like it. But anyway, do what is hard when it is easy. So here we are in this very high inflation situation, and it's much worse than what people are saying that it is. I mean, if you just take real estate, for example, real estate was very unusual over the last 2 years. If you asked anybody going into March, April 2020, just after the pandemic was recognized as being a legit pandemic, and when things got real, many people were looking to sell their houses in anticipation of a market sell-off, or a housing market sell-off, which never materialized. Or perhaps it materialized briefly for like a month or two, and then people realized, oh wait, no, we don't want to sell our houses. What's going on here, right? So, number one, if you're not investing and owning certain assets, especially in a high inflation environment, if you ask me, I'm not a financial analyst, I'm not a financial advisor, but I have been investing personally for over 20 years now. Used to trade, I don't trade anymore. But looking at the market, if you have not been owning assets, hard assets, such as real estate, and not just hard assets, to be quite honest with you, digital assets as well. I kind of put stocks into a digital asset class simply for the fact that most people aren't holding actual stock certificates. They own stocks through whatever brokerage they're using. I happen to use, a handful of different brokerages: M1 Finance, Fidelity, E-Trade. So, but the key is this: we have seen inflation, in my opinion, probably closer to 30%. Because what a lot of people don't realize is when it comes to inflation, you have the cost of gas, which has been skyrocketing. I mean, I've seen high prices for gas a few times in my life, but the rate at which the gas prices spiked in the past month has been unprecedented, if you ask me. Um, so you have inflation for gas, you have inflation for food, there's food inflation. You're seeing it, the grocery store shelves, many grocery store shelves at one point, and in the current time, there's certain grocery stores that are still having low stock and inventory on the shelves. So you're seeing inflation there. You're seeing inflation in vehicles. Look at used car vehicle prices. Um, Used car vehicles have actually appreciated, or at least held their ground during the pandemic up until now, and even now. And it obviously depends on the car, but most cars are not depreciating like they used to. So there are so many factors within our economy that the dynamic has changed so drastically. And I want to go back to where I said, do what is hard when it is easy. Investing, buying assets, looking at what can you use your money for? What can I buy that will be worth more later? And I'm not sure where you are financially, but I know many people, myself included, didn't necessarily take surplus money or extra money to invest in things that they should have or could have, and instead bought lots of leisurely products, lots of leisurely items. And I'm just thinking now, it's kind of like, wow, if you don't own assets in this current environment, you are getting so far behind. Because, for example, real estate prices went up probably anywhere between 20 and 40% over the last 2 years, which is just completely unprecedented. And so if you don't own real estate, and you haven't owned real estate over the last 2 years, you lost out significantly in terms of appreciation. If you're looking to buy a house, everything around you is 20 to 40% more expensive. So let's just put this into perspective. First of all, when you look at the CPI index, real estate's not a part of that. So real estate's not a part of that. I don't think that any asset class is a part of the CPI index. So when you say inflation is 7.5%, but you're ignoring your cost of your most expensive cost of living expense, which is housing, how is this even a valid number? I'm gonna share with you in a future video what exactly is in the CPI, because if you're gonna ignore some of these major key aspects of of our economy and take it out of the CPI index, what good is it? It's not an accurate representation of what inflation really looks like. It's almost like, if you're not aware of what's in that index, you're fooling the American people. The American people are being fooled into thinking that things are better than they are, when things are actually much worse than what they are. So that's like saying, okay, well, my housing expenses went up 20, 30, 40%, but we're not going to count that. Well, we have to count it because we have to pay it. If you're trying to buy a house and, let's just say it was I don't know, $300,000 house, and went up 20%, and that's on the low end. Most real estate appreciated way more than 20% over the last 2 years. But let's just say it's 20%. Your house now costs $360,000 to buy it. So where are we supposed to ignore the fact that this is $60,000 more expensive to buy this house? I mean, because the CPI inflation index is not counting that. So that to me. How can you have an inflation index, but it's going to ignore critical components? It's kind of silly to me. Also, interest rates are going up. The stock market, we took a hit. So, we took a paper hit, because the way I believe is you don't take a loss until you actually sell. But the stock market's down a little bit right now. It's probably down about maybe 10% last I checked. But here's the thing: since the start of the pandemic, the stock market is probably up a good 25%. So real estate and the stock market appreciated or inflated, depends on how you want to look at it. Did we really appreciate it, or did they inflate? And there's a big difference between the two. Comment down below if you want me to go into the details on the differences between those. But whatever the case is these are assets that are going up in price based on the US dollar. And if you didn't own it before they went up, if you're trying to buy it now, everything is 20 to 30, 40% more expensive. So you need housing. You need to have some form of investing, because if you're saving your money in a bank, then the bank's not even paying you half a percentage point, but CPI inflation 7.5%. So you're losing at least 7% of your purchasing power each and every single year. And then if we compound that with, if you don't own real estate, to get into real estate, to purchase real estate, it's only getting it has become 20 to 30, 40% more expensive. So it, essentially what I'm saying is if you don't have a way to grow your money at the rate of inflation or better, you're losing out. You're losing buying power. You used to be able to get gas for $2 a gallon. I mean, if we really want to be real with it, you used to be able to get gas for less than $1 a gallon. So that's probably the realest truth in inflation in our face. Just look at what you can buy with $1 or $10 or $100 today compared to what you used to be able to buy with that same amount of money 5 years ago. So the game is changing, and usually inflation is slower, so most people are not as aware of what inflation's actually doing to their money, to their currency, to their buying power. But when you have gas prices, and I use gas prices because it's so in your face, you see the signs all the time, you can't drive this down the street without seeing it. When you see that hike happen so rapidly, that's inflation that you can't ignore. But inflation has always been here. And so do what is hard when it is easy. So if you have some extra time, look at what can you do now to generate some extra income, and look at some investments that where can you put your money so that we can beat inflation. Because if we sit there doing nothing, inflation's just eating you alive. And if you're healthy, you got some spare time, in my opinion, I think the best thing that we can do right now is to be looking at alternative streams of income, looking at historically what assets have been able to outpace inflation during high inflationary times, because that's the only way to win. Don't wait until the asset prices go through the roof to say, hey, dang, maybe I should do something. We should always be preparing. So one thing that we're looking at right now is Russia, Ukraine. So there are several different food exports that are not going to be going out. We already talked about the fact that food has been increasing in price, and we've seen a lot of inflation when it comes to food. So what can we do now to kind of get ahead of this potential of a food shortage and potential spike in food inflation? Well, maybe look at some long shelf life food items that you could purchase now at the current prices, because if food prices do spike, at least now you're locking in the current price before it goes up. Now, if we don't see food inflation, if we don't see food price inflation beyond where we are, if we don't see a food shortage, well, worst case scenario, you bought what you needed anyway, you're going to consume it, so you didn't waste your money. And I'm not telling you what to do with your money, I'm just throwing some ideas out. But I'm just thinking, how do we get ahead of this inflation? How do we sustain ourselves, provide for our families, and not fall victim to what is currently happening? And saving money in the banks, in my opinion, is a losing game. I use banks only to pay my bills and have an emergency fund in there, but beyond that, I gotta have the money invested, because that inflation is real. So anyway, guys, I just wanted to share this this thought with you, and leave that idea in your mind, and let me know what you guys think about this video. I'll drop some more videos in the future. I'm going to show you what I'm stocking up on in my pantry, show you the progress that I'm making so far with that. And I appreciate you guys if you made it this far in the video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Drop me a like, drop me a question or comment, and I'll see you guys on the next one.